Yo guys, what's going on? I'm Tim, KJ filling in for Justin here on day 3, and with 30 days, Justin is going to have to take a few days off. You know how things go. Day 3, the Seattle Mariners. Day 1 was the Houston Astros. Check that out. Day 2 is the Minnesota Twins, and if one of these 3 teams is not your favorite team, they will be previewed at some point over the next month. We now get to the Seattle Mariners preview, and what we're going to do here is we're going to go over basically everything there is about the team, beginning with the off-season moves and also talking record from last year and what needs to improve from this year, and ultimately what type of success they can have this year, and whether they can make the playoffs. Now, obviously, I think that a lot of people are not feeling the Mariners as a playoff team, but let's go through everything and maybe you'll have a changed mindset. The Mariners last year, and I'm not promising that, the Mariners last year were 67-95. They finished 29 games out of Texas, and this is a division that's kind of gotten real top-heavy, with the Angels getting a lot better this offseason, and I think the Rangers have, at the very least, stayed the same. I think Yu Darvish will be at least as good as C.J. Wilson, but the A's traded away Trevor Cahill and Gio Gonzalez, so you have to wonder if they'll get worse than the 74-88 they were last season. These were the moves that they made in the offseason. They traded Michael Pineda, who was, I mean, from what I've seen out of this guy, I think he has the stuff to be a legit number 2 in the AL East, and that is saying a lot. That means pretty much an ace in any other division. And they got Jesus Montero. What I think about that trade essentially is that the Mariners already have a stud pitcher in Felix Hernandez, and when you're in a pitching park like Safeco Field, you can make it work with certain pitchers, because a lot of fly ball pitchers that don't work in certain parks can work in Safeco, because they'll pop balls up instead of hitting home runs, and that will make them look a lot better than they really are. And you can get pitchers to come to Safeco. You cannot get hitters, because we've seen guys like Richie Sexson and Adrian Beltre go there, and both of their careers fell off. Richie Sexson never revived, and Adrian Beltre is going on to be a monster again with the Red Sox and the Rangers. So I like the Jesus Montero signing. He hasn't done much in the majors so far because he's only played 19 games, but I think that he could legit hit 25 home runs this year. KJ, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think the Jesus Montero thing, acquiring him, was the biggest thing they did all off season. They're bringing in a young guy, hopefully rebuilding this team back to something that can actually contend in that division, which is, like you said, a top-heavy division. You got 2 good teams, 2 not-so-good teams. And I feel like if they build this up slowly, like they seem like they're doing now, they have a great ace, and they have now a great catcher, so that's a great 1-2. And obviously, I mean, I didn't really see too much more of what they did in the offseason. I mean, they let go of, what did you say his name was, Pineda or whatever?
Yeah, Michael Pineda.
Yeah, I mean that's gonna hurt you a little bit, but I mean, they're trying to rebuild, get young, and that's all you can really do when you have such a terrible record like what they had last year.
Yeah, Jesus Montero is likely going to be the DH. He is a catcher by trait, but they have a good catcher in Miguel Olivo. He's not a great hitter, but he's a solid catcher behind the plate. And essentially what Miguel Olivo is going to do, and we'll get more into that, but Montero has not been known to be a great fielder. Let's just say that throughout the minors. They also signed George Sherrill, who originally was with them. They ended up trading him with Adam Jones and a bunch of other people to the Orioles in that trade that did not work out for Eric Bedard. They also acquired John Jaso from the Rays, which really means nothing because he's either going to be the 3rd catcher for this team, which actually they'll probably keep 3 catchers because they would prefer not to have Montero catch, or he won't make the majors. They signed... Yeah.
Also, I believe they're bringing Carlos Guillen to training camp, and he's going to be on the AAA roster, I believe.
Yeah, they signed Aaron Heilman, Hung Chi Kuo, Carlos Guillen, Oliver Perez, and Kevin Millwood, all the minor league deals which means they'll get invites to spring training. Aaron Heilman has not done anything over the past few years. I think Hung-Chi Kuo will make the team. I think Carlos Guillen will make the team. And I think Kevin Millwood will. And Oliver Perez has really fallen off the map since he got that extension from the Mariners. Also, they signed Hisashi Iwakama, who was an MVP in Japan. He's 30 years old. I don't have a ton to go off of. I think that a lot of people look when they come over from these Asian leagues and look at that like it's inferior to the MLB. But, I mean, they are really, really good at baseball in Japan. And there might become a point over the next 50 years where Japan literally is actually better than the U.S. in baseball. Because, I mean, obviously when you watch the World Baseball Classic, Japan wins because they take it seriously and American players would rather just focus on the MLB season. But I think that because the Japanese players take it so seriously and because they've worked since World War II in developing that into a baseball country, I think that Japan is really a country on the rise. So do not look at, because we've had guys like Daisuke Matsuzaka come over and not work out, don't think that guys like Iwakama and Yu Darvish can't work out. Eric Wedge is a manager, and they play in Safeco Field, obviously, as we've mentioned. So let's get right into this lineup. Miguel Oliva will enter as your starting catcher. As I said, he's not a very good hitter. Last year in 130 games, he had 224, 19 home runs. So he can bring you some pop, but he's not a very good average hitter.
Yeah. I mean, I believe he led the team in RBIs last year, and I mean, he like you said, he brings some pop. He's not going to be that number one power hitter. They need another power hitter to back him up and give him some help, because if he is going to be that power hitter on the team, he's not going to see all the pitches, and it's hard to be a power hitter with a position like him where there's no other hitters to really, like, everybody else can just get thrown at because nobody else is really doing anything. There's only a couple other good hitters on that team, so I think he's going to do about the same of what he did last year. I don't think he's going to improve. I don't think he's going to decrease.
All right, well, let me get to that in a second. The third catcher is going to be Adam Moore. That name really doesn't mean much to me. At first base, you got Justin Smoke, who they acquired in the Cliff Lee trade. He was the big piece. He's 25 years old. Last year, got off to a hot start, and then really had a terrible second half. He had 234, 15 home runs, 55 RBIs. This guy's never going to be that huge 40 home run power hitter type. He's a switch hitting first baseman. But what I do see out of him is not even, I would compare him almost to like a Derek Lee type. I think that he can hit like 27, maybe even one or two 30 home run seasons in his career. He's a good overall hitter, but he's not that huge power hitting first baseman or just power hitter in general that this lineup has really lacked for a long time.
Yeah, I agree. And the big thing that hits me here is his age, and he is 25, and he's on a younger end of his career. I think that helps a lot because he has a lot of room for improvement. He has a lot of time until he gets into his prime. He has a couple years left until he hits his prime. So I think that's a really big key because he could be an asset to this team. He could be the first baseman for a couple years to come, and he can help pack a punch with Oliva.
Mike Karp will be the backup first baseman, but as you will see in a second, he's also starting in left field. So for the most part, unless they add another piece, there are some available pieces out there. I mean, potentially you could see them maybe go after a guy like Raul Ibanez, who has connections to Seattle, if he doesn't ultimately end up going to a team like the Yankees. So we'll have to see. But as it stands, they're kind of short at first base. At second base, you have Dustin Ackley starting. Dustin Ackley is 23 years old. Came up last year, 273, 6 home runs, and 36 RBIs. This guy is supposed to be a monster. We'll see what happens. I think he is going to be a very, very good player in the next few years. I think he can be one of the top 5 second basemen in the MLB. As we see a lot of this second basemen that we've kind of grown to know over the past few years, guys like Chase Utley and Ian Kinsler and Dustin Pedroia are reaching towards age 30 if they're not already that old. And in Kinsler and Utley's case, they've had a lot of trouble. And Pedroia's case 2 years ago, they've had a lot of trouble staying healthy. But Ackley looks to be very good. And then backing him up, you have Kyle Seager. Again, Kyle Seager's not a great player last year. 258, 3 home runs, doesn't do much for you.
I like this Ackley guy. He sounds like you said, he's going to be a monster and everything. I hope he lives up to that expectation. I hope he helps his team out and become a great team. At his age, too, you say he's a young guy. That helps a lot because if these young guys can come together and help and create this team in a couple of years to be a contender, these guys could hang around, and then when all these older guys, he could be a top 5 second baseman. And I hope he can do that because his average, I mean, like you said, at such a young age, and what he's bringing to the tables right now, I mean, if he can just work on that, he'll be a great second baseman, top 5, like you said.
Yeah, I mean, it might not be the best because Robinson Cano is only getting better still, I think. But we'll have to see. At shortstop, you have Brendan Ryan, who has been around the MLB for 4 or 5 seasons, mostly with the Cardinals now. But last season, in his first year with the Mariners, he had 248, 3 home runs. That's kind of going to be a tough position. He's a pretty solid fielder, but that really, you cannot have a starter hit like that. Seager will back him up, and then Seager also starts at third base, where you also have Alex Leedy and Sean Figgins, who at one time was a superstar. Well, I don't know if I would say go as far as a superstar, but Sean Figgins, when he was with the Angels, was a really, really solid player. He had 330 one year. He always kind of had some issues staying healthy, but since he's gone there, he had 259 in 2010. And then in only half a season last year, he hit 188. So I don't think they're really anticipating much out of Sean Figgins at this point.
Yeah, like you said about the shortstop that they have, those numbers sound really on the down low. That's horrible for a starter. 3 homers and hitting that low of a percentage. That's not going to get the job done this time.
No, okay. Now let's go out to the outfield. You have starting in left field, Mike Karp, who we already talked about. Mike Karp's actually a pretty decent player. On most teams, I don't want to say a 4th outfielder, but he's more of a platoon situation. But he did a nice job for them last year. 276, 12 home runs, and 46 RBIs. And then backing him up in left field, you have Casper Wells, who is also backing up Ichiro over in right field. Casper Wells last year, 237 with 11 home runs and 27 RBIs. He's a decent backup, but nothing that if he comes off the bench late in the game, and obviously that doesn't happen as much in the American League, but because of the DH. But if he comes off the bench, it's not necessarily going to be a guy that scares you.
Yeah, I don't think he's scared either, but he's going to be decent field. That's really it, but yeah,
Alright, in center field, you have a guy who really broke out 2 seasons ago, Franklin Gutierrez. 2 seasons ago, after kind of flaming out with the Indians, actually 3 years ago, he came there, hit 283 with 18 home runs, and 2 years ago, in 152 games, he hit 303 with 12 home runs, and then last year he had a real down year in 92 games. Obviously, he had some injuries, hit 224 with 1 home run and 19 RBIs. It's really tough to be successful in a lineup where the guys around you are constantly changing. If you get a really solid player, he probably gets traded. He's a 7 or 8 year old, I forget exactly which one, but he's actually a pretty solid center fielder.
I couldn't really hear what you said, Tim. Just go on to the next position.
Alright, KJ having some issues with his new iPhone. In center field, then, you have Michael Saunders, who's the backup, 58 games last year. He hit 149 with 2 home runs, so obviously he's not going to be seeing much time. And then out in right field, you have Ichiro, who really last year had a down year after hitting over 300 every single season of his career. Before last year, the lowest average of his career was 303, and then the second lowest was like 310. I mean, since as recently as 2009, the guy hit 352. Last year, he dropped down to 272. It wasn't really an injury thing because he played all the games except one, but 5 home runs, which, I mean, he's never been a power guy. The most home runs he ever hit was 15, and 47 RBIs. So the RBIs have kind of gone down over the course of his career, and he did still steal 40 bases, but you've seen him move from center to right field. I mean, ultimately, Ichiro at age, what is he? Yeah, he's 38, or he's 37. He's really getting out to the point in his career where he's not going to be able to be counted on much longer as the guy in this lineup, and I think at some point they have to consider maybe moving on from him and trading him because I think that's fair to Ichiro. He's spent his whole career there since 2001. This is his 11th year, I believe, there, and he's really done a lot for that franchise, and unfortunately since that 2001 year where they won 116 games, and the one year where Mike Nargrove was the manager and then quit, they really haven't been able to put much together for him.
Yeah, Ichiro's always been a high percentage guy. Last year he did have a down year, like you said. I think you still have to keep him accountable for being a huge part of your offense, though. And he's always been huge for the 11 years he has been there. He's always been a big piece of this team. And hopefully he can. I know he's getting old, and like you said, they might have to part ways soon. To be fair to him, and that's just how it goes when you're almost 38 years old. But I think he's gonna have a better year than what he had last year. That's what I'm hoping for the guy. But that's all you can really do is hope.
Alright, now let's look over at the pitching staff, which has seen some turnover in the offseason, as we mentioned before. We'll start at the top. Felix Hernandez obviously won the Cy Young 2 years ago. Last year, he did not top what he did 2 years ago with a 2.27 ERA, but he went 14-14 with a 3.47 ERA, threw over 230 innings, really had another really solid season. Unfortunately for him, it's not that not having hitters makes you pitch badly, but when you're always in a game where if you give up more than one run, you probably are not going to win the game, it makes you more likely to give up that second and third run. He still had a nice year last year. 3.47 ERA is not bad, but it's not at the par that he set for himself in his career, having ERAs in the past like 2.49, 2.27. Really, in 2009 and 2010, he looked like a guy who was probably going to be the best pitcher in baseball in 2011. That did not happen. But I would expect a real strong campaign this year from Felix Hernandez.
Yeah, I expect the same. This guy is a beast, and the only thing that hurts him in his pitching is he doesn't have an offense to give him that confidence to know that you can give up a run here and there and still win a game. Because when he does give up a run, it's basically game over for that team. Because like we went over, these players aren't putting up any offense for him. He is a beast, though. I think he's going to have a great season this year. I hope this team can help turn his win and loss record around. He still did have a good season last year. But I'm hoping that he'll put together a better pitching season and have some help from his offense for once.
And I think the message that the Mariners sent by trading away Pineda when he's so young is that they do plan to not trade away Felix Hernandez, try and lock this guy up. He's still really young. Let me pull up exactly how young he is still. But, yeah, he's still like 26 years old, so there's no reason really for them to rush. He's still got like 2 or 3 years left before he can hit free agency. So they're not in a rush. I think that they feel like over the next 2 or 3 years, they can show this guy that, look, we're not going to contend over the next 2 or 3 years probably with the Angels now being stacked, adding Albert Pujols, C.J. Wilson, the whole crew, and then the Rangers obviously winning the American League the last 2 years and being a strike away from winning the World Series last year. But what that they can try and do is try and get to the point where they're winning 84, 85 games and maybe make a pitch to this guy that long term it's going to work here, and you can look back at this and say, you know, I was the one who was loyal throughout it all. I don't know, but at the number 2 spot, then you have Jason Vargas. Jason Vargas last season went 10-13 with a 4.25 ERA. That is not good enough for your number 2 starter. But 2 years ago, I went 9-12 with a 3.78 ERA. That's still probably not good enough for your number 2 starter. But if he can get back to what he did 2 years ago, then certainly you're going to see some improvement, no doubt.
Yeah, if he comes out this coming up season and puts up the numbers he put up last year, it's not going to cut it, especially at the number 2 starter. I don't see how you could have a number 2 starter who's putting up that horrible of an ERA and giving up that many runs. It's just not getting those wins and having that many losses. The number 2 starter, that's really unheard of. That's just horrible. But hopefully this guy, like you said, can turn it around like he did a couple of years ago and put up some wins and have a better ERA this year.
Yeah, I mean, that's really what you hope to see, and we might be getting Justin on here in a second now, actually, because he just sent me a message saying he could get on, I believe. But regardless, and that's Skype here in the background. Just kind of ignore that. Justin should be joining us momentarily. At the number 3 spot, then, you have Iwakama, who we did talk about as one of the top accusations. We don't really have much to go off of, but he looks like he should be a pretty solid pitcher for the Mariners over the next few seasons. At the number 4 spot, then, we're talking about Bevan, Blake Bevan, that is. Last season, 5-6 with a 4.27 ERA and 97 innings pitched. Let's be honest, this guy should not be a pitcher in the MLB. Or at least not a starting pitcher in the number 4 spot.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, putting up those numbers is not going to cut it, even at the 4 spot. If you deserve to be a full-time pitcher, if you're putting up those kind of numbers, hopefully this guy can turn around and make sure his pitching career.
And rounding out the rotation at number 5, you have Charlie Furbush. Last season, Furbush went 4-10 with a 5.48 ERA. So